Thank you to a huge thank you to Stacy for inviting me into the Tesoro Sisterhood. So I would like to read a little bit about Tesoro before we begin. And this is a quote from Stacy from the Fire Singers website. Right now, every woman in the world stands in the crosshairs of a major upheaval in the way things have always been. No, not the crossroads. We've always been there. Each and every one of us is a target because we've learned that we no longer have leave or reason for silence. It is my job to ensure that voices are heard, listened to, and recorded. My journey has not changed. The mission is the same, but I've picked up some new weapons. And my sisters are all on the battlefield with me because regardless of country or condition, we have to fight or we die. And that's a direct quote from Stacey Dyson. So I'd like to introduce myself very, very briefly. My name is Josephine Loray. I was born in Canada of Sicilian parents. I live in Calgary, which is in the West, just north of the Dakotas. And it is the ancestral traditional home of a number of Indigenous groups that moved following their food sources for thousands of years. And I would like to thank them and acknowledge them for having brought culture and language and ultimately poetry to this land. The Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, which includes the Dene, the Nakota, the Kainai, and the Siksika. So I have five very special guests with me, and each of them will be reading for 10 minutes, and I'll be reading interspersed, and then I'll be reading from my collection, In My Father's House, which was published by Moonstone Press in the United States this year. So I will start with a poem, and then I will introduce Stacy. Deeper than the flesh. I reach out to touch the place where you are raw, where new skin has yet to form over old wound. I lay my hands upon your flesh to take away your pain and look into your eyes, distant from deception and mistrust. I think that I could make you whole again. I let you take a kiss, drink deeply from my well, like a man who has walked out of the desert, blinded by the sun of bitter truths, parched by blowing sand and the winds that have dispersed all you once held dear, all you once knew real. Your body, unsoothed, craves a soft caress, yearns for woman's soft embrace. I hear in your hollow breath the echo of my hurt. I see in your broken face a reflection of my pain and offer you myself, the comfort that you seek. But no matter how we try, the body cannot dispel the aching of the soul. The emptiness we try to fill lies deeper than the flesh. So, Stacy Dyson, thank you very much, is a Black woman who explores and illuminates the life and times of the Black woman. She is the founder and lead poet of Tesoro, with shows in Oklahoma, Massachusetts, California, Nebraska, South Dakota, Louisiana, Colorado, and Texas. She has released 6 chapbooks and 5 CDs. Her play, Fanny's Girls, a 4-1-1 in 5-part attitude, is a 2000 Colorado Women's Playwriting Festival winner. Former Poet Laureate for Imagination Celebration of Colorado Springs, CEO and lead poet of Dragon's Wings, Colorado Springs, and Page to Stage Women's Voices in San Diego. She is touring, or was touring, with her latest collections, Lovely and Suffering, and Follow Me on This, and Building Tesoro, one fire singer at a time. Join me in welcoming Stacy.
Thank you, darling. I do appreciate the intro. White glove wearing, sipping tea. The ladies our mothers raised us to be, hair did, legs crossed, skirts below the knee. My sisters, we be proper. Nutmeg sip champagne cross town. Chitlins and collards for pretty brown. Business girl, true ebony, just laying it down. Gold mellow, burnt cedar, beige copper. In the club, booty popping, raw as hell. Next morning, we got tales to tell who went home with him and who landed in jail. My sisters, we be jamming. Mini dashiki heels and boots, Chanel and Tommy girl, handmade suits, clothes that flash our legs and roots. Our fashion sense be slamming. Brunette, brownette, blonde and red, perm, afro, braided, beaded, dreads, girl either shave it or grease that nappy head. My sisters, we do our hair. Say your man do his do until the sun fall out the sky. Make you holler till you hungry, make you scream and sweat and cry, but you catch him double dipping, slam that door and holler, bye. Because my sisters, we do not share. Vanilla, almonds, jasmine rose, magnolias and sugar from our head to toes, mango, linden flower scent our skin and clothes. My sisters, we are delicious. Can't believe what just got told. Better back it up, heifer, slow your roll. I'll whip butt till it can't swing no more. My sisters can be vicious. Abandoned mothers broke and blue, crackhead hoes without a clue, grandma warning, don't make me come see about you. Ain't all good, but we keep on praying. Dark and skinny, light and thick. Can't stand no man with a little sense of his own worth and responsibilities, not working and living in his mama's basement. My sisters don't be playing. Light the incense, sing the praise, kneel in silence all your days. Bible, Koran, Talmud learn, God takes his tithe in time and tears. Our hearts will break, but our faith will burn. My act for sure you calling out. I'll get Vaseline to take my ears out, my sisters. We be banging. Yay, we proud. Yay, we loud. Yay, we stand out in a crowd. Some might get the nerve to call us row. B. My sisters, we just be hanging. Every man on the planet want to be our man. From Jamaica Queens to Pakistan, multimillionaires to the garbage man. My ladies, we are admired. We can't be quiet, won't be tamed. You better not call us out our name. We might love the players, but we hate the games. We're not things to be acquired. Still judging just off what you see. Look, you do you, and I'll do me. We can't be labeled that easily, my sisters. We just be. We be. Mi padre named me Rosa. He said it was so I would always be reminded of pretty things, flowers and light and love that is very hard to do in this border camp, where everything is despair and lost hope, harsh light and broken families. Yo no soy una flor, yo soy una niña. If I were a flower, I could ride in the band of my father's hat, the only one he ever owned. The brim was cracked with ragged edge, but the headband was strong, tempered with sun and sweat from the labors that made the money to bring us across. I wonder if he still has the hat, or if somebody took it away from him, threw it away, the way they took his daughter and threw her away. When I was young, I remember my mommy bending in to kiss my puppy, welcome home. I stood between, one hand wrapped around my mother's knee, one around my father's, a rose, growing strong and vibrant in the fragrance of their love for each other. I cannot feel that sun now. Just the lights that shine constantly overhead. If I were a flower, I would be in his pocket, fragrant and close to his heartbeat, close to where he kept the money to make the coyotes not look at me and say evil things, lick their lips and say evil things. I don't have much English, but I know what they said was wrong. Made my father hold my hand tighter than he ever did when we walked at home. Hold me closer, shielding me when they passed by to count how many souls they planned to release to the desert or deserted alleyways or dark, cold stretches of strange highways, not look at me the way the guard here looks at me. That guard, he looks at me the way I remember the bad, drunken men looking at the bodies of women in the street, the soldiers looking at the bodies of women in the street. He looks at me that way. The older women, they tell me, stay away from him, pull me into chores or conversation when he is near, try and hide me away from his glances. But when he sees me in the halls or my room or in the playing field, he watches me. He looks at me like the soldiers, like the drunks and bad men watch the bodies of women in the street. Once he ran his hand over my hair and smiled and said, "Que linda chica, you're a pretty thing, ain't you?" The older women surrounded me, pulled me away, but they cannot always be close. And I am afraid because sometimes he comes for the older girls and they come back very quiet, very sad. And I can feel their fear. Sometimes they cry out when they sleep. They run and pull me away to lie down by my bed, but they do not sleep then. Their eyes are open to watch for me, to protect me, but they cannot stay awake forever. Papi, he used to take me to count the stars, watch the cool earth with the moon singing to me so that I would learn not to be afraid of the night. I am always afraid now. Roses stand strong against the wind. Call the rain, sister, breathe free air. Yo no soy una flor. I am a little girl. Mi madre es muerta. Mi padre is out in the world without me. One day, una mariposa landed on the windows. A rose can talk to a butterfly, right? I asked her to please find my father so he can take me to where I can find rest, breathe free air, feel the night sing gentle with the moon. Sometimes I do not think I have another season. I may never see me puppy again. The butterfly may never deliver my message. Why should she? Butterflies only talk to flowers, and I am not a flower. I am just a little girl. Yo no soy una flor. I am not a flower. Yo soy una niña. I am just a little girl. I am just a little girl. My last piece, Josephine, thank you for inviting me to come and play. Always pleasure. My not so dear sirs, on behalf of women everywhere, of sisters everywhere, I am reclaiming the word angry because we are not supposed to be that thing. Never mind what happens to us. Never mind the insults thrown in our faces on every level, every day. In the name of sisters everywhere, I want to reclaim the word strong, not used as it is now, not used as a weaponizing force to undermine our vulnerabilities, simply an acknowledgement that we can kill you 14 different ways with our tears or bent backs or open thighs. Yes, we will still be patient and long suffering, just only in the way that you are patient and long suffering when you are studying the enemy and ready to spill blood before nightfall, before dawn. Because we are supposed to be quiet and patient and strong. We are not supposed to be angry when you rape us, betray us, murder our children, cheat us in finance and government. You tell us, expect us to lick your tears and be glad of the water. Every sister on this planet has done time at the altar of white male privilege. Every sister on this planet has done time trying to hold her head up while burying her heart in the dirt or having it torn to shreds and buried for her. We are reclaiming it all. We are using the words as they are meant to be used, which means we are through listening. We are over conversation, past the indignity of letting other people define, legislate, social more, condition us into any truth but the one real truth, in the name of every sister in this place, on this planet, in the name of every sister been forced to breathe deep and smile to keep her children, her job, her man, her soul intact. I hereby reclaim our voices, reclaim our space, claim, encourage, ride in bold on our anger. I hereby reclaim our time.
Thank you so much, Stacey. And since it's just a small crowd, if you would like to unmute and offer your feedback, you can. And at any time, if you would like to add comments to the chat, you can as well. It's a very powerful reading, Stacey. Not just your words, but also your delivery. And I could feel the passion and the truth in your words. Okay, so before I introduce Leonora, I would like to read a poem from the Cowichan series. It's not very clear. There we go. The Cowichan is an area on Vancouver Island, and I did a writing retreat there, and I took multiple photographs, and my publisher's wife recommended ghosting the photographs and then printing the words over top of that. So I'll tell you a little bit of the backstory, and then I'll read this short poem with you. So it was called Honeymoon Bay, and it was beautiful. It was a little inn with manicured lawns and a living labyrinth. And I was walking to the end of the grounds, and there was this just beautiful, pristine forest, and the shaft of sunlight lit it. And I was really, really tempted to go into this little grove, but I thought, what if I don't come out? What if I don't find enough reason to come back to this world? So I wrote this poem called Missing Woman. I could step off this path into the woods, use strands of silver from my hair as passage into fairy world. Inhale the richness of the earth, learn the call of birds, wash my feet in morning dew, and as light deepens toward the mystery, lay my body down in bowers of sweet moss. Thank you. My papers. So I'd like to introduce Leonora now. Leonora Simonovis is a Venezuelan-born poet, educator, and scholar who lives in San Diego, California, on the unceded territory of the Kumeyaay Nation. Her poetry manuscript, Study of the Raft, was selected by final judge Sherwin Bitsui as winner of the 2021 Colorado Prize for Poetry, and was published by the Center for Literary Publishing at Colorado State University. She teaches Latin American literature and creative writing in Spanish at the University of San Diego. Welcome, Leonora.
Thank you, Josephine, and thank you for the invitation. I relocated, so I'm now in Western New York. I need to update my bio. So I'm gonna read my first poem is bilingual. So I'm gonna read it in Spanish first and then in English. The word matria means motherland, and in Spanish, people usually use patria, which is fatherland. So many women are sort of challenging that and instead seeing the motherland and not the fatherland. Matria. Magulladura, el sabor amargo de una estación cocida a medias, un escalón dilapidado. Si tuviera que trazar sus contornos en mi cuerpo, serían tonos de bronce en una puesta de sol, escamas de caimán o quizás la humedad de un rouge en los labios de mi madre. Cada línea trazada cuidadosamente, caras, nombres, sueños, todo lo que se pueda preservar. Pensar en la travesía, dice mi amigue, requiere ternura. Tiene razón. En medio del caos, recuerdo y reconozco en mí misma el hogar del que partí. Yo, Matria. Motherland. A bruise, the bitterness of a half-cooked season, the broken step of a dilapidated ladder. If I were to map it on my body, it would look like salt bronzed by the setting sun, like the scales of a caiman, or maybe the moistness of rouge on my mother's lips. Borders trimmed just right, conjuring faces, names, dreams, whatever is worth preserving. Think of the journey, my friend says. It requires tenderness. She's right. In the recall, I remember and recognize what is still here. Me, I am home. Arabian Nights, remix. And I'm reading from Study of the Raft, which my book. Caracas, February 4th, 1992. Tonight, a commander in olive uniform declares war against the background of a TV studio. Now and forever, this revolution will be recorded in the annals of history. My mother's foot softly taps on the floor, and for a moment, the camera wobbles, but the commander doesn't seem to notice. I clutch my copy of Arabian Nights, the cover scabbed and peeling, trace the outlines of domed palaces and flying carpets half-heartedly colored by the book's previous owners. Everyone believes a silver tongue, says one character after listening to Scheherazade lull the Sultan to sleep. The commander calls everyone to arms. Justice will come swiftly to those who oppose us. I consider my parents' warnings. If we don't come home, someone will take care of you. Their faces flickering in and out of view in the bluish light of the screen, while between the pages, a woman gets to live another day. Gospel. Bullet drops spit on the bus's plastic windows, clothes glued to skin, bodies steam in the aisle, green uniforms and red berets on every corner. In this city, we walk with those already gone, transformed in the red cocoon of a failed revolution. The rivers overflow, drags pieces of tin roofs, a door, a diaper, food wrappers. 200 murders this week, reads a headline. We march to honor the fallen. Students, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons and daughters, bodies piling at the morgue, untagged, unclaimed, unbagged, and bound to a trigger. Murder is prayer and redemption. Why can't I have what they have, says a prisoner when asked about his criminal activities. At the bus station, street vendors sell 30-centimeter statues of former criminals, heroes. So when a child takes a life, they know they'll always be forgiven. This is a fragment from a longer piece called Postcards from Everywhere and Nowhere. Dear cousin, what happens when your genetic code is grafted in 2 languages? Does it mean the patterns never stop shifting? Yesterday, we had an earthquake in San Diego, and I heard the earth grinding its teeth, as if to speak. Dear cousin, my son asked if citizen is a foreign word. I was tempted to say yes. I told him there was once a city whose people were not alien. They belonged. Oh, so where do we belong? He asked. I'm shifting gears a little bit, and I'm going to read a couple of new poems. The crone addresses a group of young women. You say my shoulders slump. You say I drag this body, shuffle and sigh. You say there is a dome at the nape of my neck. I palm, feel nothing, but you insist. Show me photos of women I've never met, faces drawn, crooked fingers holding on to the back of a chair, a shawl, a cane. Women who carry the desert in them, all sand and dry wind. They dam their waters to stop themselves from dreaming. I imagine myself in that photo, body bowed, skin wrinkled. And what of it? Maybe that's how we believe, by looking at something, giving it a name so it stays with us. In my dome, a sacred mountain, soil moist by rain showers, musky, plush, women standing under a waterfall, daring the gods to shatter their dreams. On beauty. Each month, I feel less muscle mass, less fear of the unknown, less tolerance for bullshit. Shape-shifting woman, bones rearranging in clicks and pops. I never needed to visit the hot springs until now, but the body wants what it needs. Aging, a kind of erosion, a raft downriver, diving through a revolving door. Soon, I'll turn into the devil the nuns warned me about. I'll walk away, wings tucked, earthbound, beautiful. And I'm going to read one last poem. Illusions. I look at the chicken pecking the yard, know that if I wanted to, I could break her neck in seconds. I think of my grandmother, my great-grandmother, and all the women before me who had to break something inside them so others wouldn't. Once I sat in front of a gray wolf, let our gazes lock, a wolf whose name I won't share because there's always a hunter. I could tell you what I saw in those eyes made me afraid, but I'd be lying. Sometimes all it takes is one soul-crushing look to realize how wrong we've been, that a story is just a story. Thank you.
Leonora, thank you so much. I had only heard some of your pieces on recordings, and I'm so glad to hear you live, and I really appreciate the selection that you read with us. Before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to read a poem about poetry, and it's called Sometimes a Poem. Sometimes the poem arrives, a flutter of wings unseen against cheek, waking from dream. Sometimes a storm. Sometimes the poem darkens my mind, a susurration of starlings, a waterfall, cascade. At times the poem is an owl, intrigued, orange eyes aglow, the wonder of night. Sometimes northern lights, a bowl full of stars, a V across my consciousness, honking in formation, mapless destination. A quiet trail through the woods, soft rain on my face, and sometimes the poem is a lone bird, unseen, summit of lodgepole, pining for a mate. A smooth stone found at the bottom of a lake, and that time the poem was tender-hued, a mallard waddling riverbank, a gaggle of yellow-brown chicks in her wake. The moon ripened full just over the line where sea meets infinity. A spring poem came as waxwing once, rowan berries in beak, profusion of jasmine and lilac. Summer poem pelicans caught on northbound breeze. And that poem I wish I could forget, baby bird, speckled breast, askew on unforgiving ground. So many poems written in hues of deepest blue. A poem like a hummingbird, hovering, fireflies flitting, ephemeral spark. A poem without words, oh sweet newborn sleep. And then this late winter poem, chickadee flitting, bare branch tree, come to rest upon upcurved palm, searching for some seed. Thank you. And it's my pleasure now to introduce Teresa, who I had the great honor of meeting this summer when she came up to the Canadian Rockies. Teresa Gallion is a seeker on a journey to work on unfolding spiritually in this present lifetime. Writing is a spiritual exercise for Teresa. Her passions are traveling the world and hiking the mountain and desert landscapes of the Western US. Her journeys into nature are nurtured by Sufi poets Rumi, and Hafiz. The land is sacred ground and her spiritual temple where she goes for quiet reflection and contemplation. She has published 4 books: Walking Sacred Ground, Contemplation in the High Desert, Chasing Light, a finalist in the 2013 New Mexico Arizona Book Awards, and her most recent, but there's one since, so The Scent of Love, because there was also the one written in Egypt. So this is a bio that's maybe not quite up to date. She has 2 CDs, On the Wings of the Wind and Poems from Chasing Light. Her work appears in numerous journals and anthologies. Would you give us a title of your collection from Egypt, please, as well?
Come Egypt.
Come Egypt, yes, thank you. Okay, I'll mute now.
Thank you so much for inviting me to read. I'm looking forward to seeing you and showing you a little bit of my mountain, because you showed me some of your land, which I fell in love with. I have to come back. I'm going to read a couple of pieces from my most recent book, which is Come Egypt. I'll be reading totally from Come Egypt tomorrow on Cultivating Voices Live for the opening season there. So if any of you can come, please come by. The first piece is called Egyptian Yacht. Peace flows over me like a soothing melody. My heart expands and love floods my bones. Ecstasy makes me float like a goddess. I cannot pull words from my mouth to capture the feelings invading my brain. Perhaps silence is the best response as I gaze at morning's light streaking across the Nile River. We float on an Egyptian yacht. The Aida is forever imprinted on our hearts. It gently carries us on this majestic river. We are all at peace, savoring the magic and the quiet flow of a powerful waterway that transports the weight of humanity downstream. The inner pictures of my soul are not ready to release. They tease me with no mercy. I yield and bend my knees on this sacred death in praise of this river. Living in the moment is the key. I savor the endless love flowing through this morning and hold my robust coffee close to the chest. The second piece is called Abu Simbel Intrusion. And this is at the temple, written at the temple of Ramesses II, for those who are not familiar with the Egyptian tombs and temples. Night frost brings the soothing balm of light and sound rippling past camp. Sleepy eyes fold, dreams come and escort you to the secret garden. Here you may sit in peace, absorb the wisdom of violets, paintbrush, and daisies. You may bow in reverence to a mushroom's artistic expression. Now feel the music of a wild blade of grass sing close to your legs. You were born to taste beauty and hold space for the broken. Come hither and sleep with me. But I cannot sleep with you, dear nature, for the pull of the river Nile is teasing me, and the temple of Abu Simbel calls my name. After 3,000 years, his ego still echoes in the desert wind. 100 wives have stood at his foot and cursed his hand against the breast. How many times have you come back here, Ramesses II, in the last 3,000 years and longed to assert your authority on the sacred feminine? You dominate the ancient landscape rising from the sand at Luxor. Your ego explodes at the Luxor temple. The sheer size of your monuments raise the question about your worship of deities. Were you really paying tribute to Amun-Ra? You cannot sleep with nature tonight. Your hold is too tight. Let go, Ramesses. Let go. I'm beginning to get Egypt out of my system, even though it keeps creeping in because it had such a powerful impact on me. So I'm going to read 3 more recent pieces, which are relatively short. Dinner of Words. Cup your lips around the words. Chew slowly to experience full flavor. Swallow the blended words and savor the wonderful taste as it rolls over the back of your tongue. Enjoy a dinner of words, divine flavors blend to tease and fill the stomach of your soul. Only a word chef may compete for your taste buds. Only biting verbs will make the cut and dribble down your shirt. The stains form unspoken art. Reserved divine word shelves will be able to catch words and release phrases that massage souls. A peasant wordsmith may miss this mystical experience. Her mouth will be wide open, ready to take in any word crumbs filled with endless possibility. Wisdom notes written for the Whisper Poet, but can apply to all sisters. The coming and going of clouds tell stories that some may be able to hear. Take time and rest and contemplate God's love and a bird chirping. Sunrise over your camp, flowers running in a mountain meadow, water lyrics of a river flowing past. All have teachings engraved in clouds. The natural order of things are clustered in those moving clouds. The time and place for you is now. Grasp and hold it for a second. Let your emotions flow into the wind. Revelations come after the rain in the colors of the rainbow. Study each color with gratitude and reverence. Sometimes we must walk in the dark to get to the light. It strengthens our spiritual potential to expand and grow. Soul develops and unfolds with hardship, for life is a jungle walk and a garden walk. Embracing living to the fullest so you do not stunt your growth, that is a heavy suitcase to carry. The struggles you face are growth opportunities. Always listen for the sounds of God and nature. This expands your soul with gold and wisdom coins, love, and open your heart to God's love. 1,000 tales are singing next to your pillow while you sleep with indigo dreams. When your body awakens in harmony with soul, know that you are bathed in spiritual light. Your soul whispers in your ear 1,000 messages of love. Listen. And this last piece I just wrote a couple of weeks ago, and it's kind of still in draft form, while I was sitting camping on the Arkansas River in Colorado, which was wonderful. The Solitudes. 1. Sitting on the surface of my happy place, listening to the lyrics of water in an everlasting cruise downstream, I pay homage to nature's ways for the experience of a spiritual massage. Words cannot convey my joy. A flood of gratitude flows from my heart. Words like majesty, magnificence, beauty do not capture the essence of this river's song. I bend my knees toward the water, open my ears to love, and simply say, thank you. 2. I meditate here on the river and listen to its song of praise to me. I see snow-capped mountain peaks in the Canadian Rockies, lakes bleeding in emerald, turquoise, and royal blue, kissed with puffy white fire clouds and blue sky majesty. Shape-shifting between my happy places, between those various rocky places, unobstructed, unaffected by the noise of humankind. Water observes negative energy attacks, releases new stars of positive energy, and regurgitate in endless cycles. 3. When I think of all the rivers I've had the honor to embrace, I know good karma is blazing within me. I feel high as a kite. No drugs needed for this kind of high. Just float in ecstasy. A stream of consciousness rides the river rapids. Only enlightened souls feel the intensity beyond this earth plane. The whitecaps rub rocks and try to flow in reverse drive. They cannot overpower the determination of a river to move forward. I sit here and watch people stroll, and I wonder how many hear the river's true call to love. Thank you. And thank you, Josephine, so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. Your words are a balm, and I'm learning so much from you. I wanted to mention that the first time I heard Teresa read, and also Martina, was in Cultivating Voices, and that's where Teresa's going to be reading tomorrow in the showcase. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Before I introduce the next reader, I would like to share a poem called Oblivion, which was published in England, Birmingham, England, by Constellate magazine. And it was inspired by a Russian-born Canadian poet called Ella Zeltzerman. And in her poem, these lines moved me. I whisper into your ear so you hear and do not hear. My poem's called Oblivion. I whisper in your ear so you hear and do not hear. Our rhythms fill the pauses in our breath. Rhyme entwines us like a villanelle. In the ruby light of oil lamp, I stand before you loosely, concealed only by the shimmer of a veil. The curves of my country, the rise and the dip and the long slow valley where the weight and the warmth of your hand once summoned me from sleep. I pour into your glass sweet drops of lethe. We shed our skin and swim beneath the substance of a dream. Thank you. Our next poet is Martina McGowan. Martina is a physician, a poet, writer, artist, advocate, activist in the wars against social, racial, and sexual injustices. Her debut poetry collection, I Am the Rage, was a 2021 International Book Award winner in the Social Change category and Goodreads Choice Award nominee. Her work has been published internationally in literary magazines and anthologies. She's also a poetry editor and book reviewer and has a blog. So let's welcome Martina McGowan.
Thank you, Josephine.
Thank you.
Yes, the first book was I Am the Rage. I'll be reading from the second book, A Sweeter Song. So yes, Stacy, I need to update as well. I don't often write in form, but this first poem is. It's called A Song for My Mother, The Missing Sistina. I often write about my father, never enough about my mother. The poems I do not write would not be light, not cheery by anyone's measure, no untroubled frolic through childhood mine, but neither only desolate nor darkness. As children, we are often in the dark about the union of our folks. Further, Along, we're able to explore, to scrutinize the love they must have had blossom as our mothers, younger, considering the full measure of our fathers before stepping into life's bright light. Her grandfather, a freed slave, baptized, enlightened, only to find a world still full of darkness, migrating north, seeking a different measure of the value of our skin, a broken father, an untimely demise, forsaken mother, left with a teen, thought she'd lost her own damned mind. The poems I do not write might help underline the dark days, the loss of her joy, the loss of her own light. They would speak of courageous choices, my mom struggling to save her girl child from the dark, moving our legacy to some degree further, raising the bar with fresh standards, new measures. Love cannot always be calculated or measured, while hurt is still assailing our hearts and minds. She made the leanest of wages stretch further and farther, praying one day the burden might lighten. Generational curses lurking in the dark, boldness in things betokening a good mother. The poems I do not write for my mother would talk about a love I now treasure, for in our youth, useful gauges cannot be found in the dark, squirming through troubles and sidestepping landmines, slowly limping toward the ardent light, both silently grieving, missing my father. The darkness did not devour my mother, and by any appraisal, serving as both mother and father, leaving lessons I now share with mine as we continue to search for life's bright light. This next is called Kindness. When I was about 3 feet tall, an acquaintance of my mother presented me with a red plastic umbrella decorated with white polka dots. It was marvelous and slick and cool to the touch, a place to take refuge when the world was raining down on my personal parade, both physically and metaphorically. I carried it everywhere until the metal began to bend at awkward angles and the plastic tore beyond repair. When I was about a foot taller, we met again. I remembered her face and her kindness and her name. More importantly, I remembered the simple, loving gesture to a quiet, lonely child of a gift, costly to her, I'm sure, and dear to me. I still appreciate her for seeing me when no one else could or did, and for the enduring lessons of showing kindness. Even when we don't feel there's much to share, there is always something to give, and every act is important. Taller still, and many years older, working in a hut hospital in Haiti, from an exam room hotter than hell, propping the only window open for a breeze, I spied 3 little girls playing out back. They were about 3 feet tall, probably small for their age. I could see they didn't have much. No one in Haiti does. Clandestinely, I passed them the day's ration of nutrition bars and sandwiches. Delighted giggles and mercies followed. Perhaps one day, when they are taller, they too will remember kindness and pass it on. Okay. Sankofa. Plucked from starlight, playing in forests, passing through the gates of hell and barracoons, 13 days inside the belly of another beast, Highland heather lashed to my DNA. Up from the sticky, sweet sap of stout pines, barbed and prickly cotton, 200 pounds a day, flesh, timber, fluffy bowls all on the auction block, tumbled down slave quarters turned into homes, from emancipated slaves bearing biblical names, grandmothers dreaming of freedom with a capital F, crooked, scarred hands corralling the future, sharing history not found in books. We are from red clay pounded into concrete, hard streets and harder women, doling out wisdom and hard-earned lessons, love buried deep like diamonds, hard to see, sometimes harder to feel. from running across hot, tarry rooftops, wise potato chips and orange knee-highs, marbles, stickball, and flying free from swings before we knew we were prey again. Tiny apartments filled with family, aromas of food from down home, a blessed circle big enough for Jesus wept to be said more than once. Smiling eyes, cutting, side rolling, waiting for another to say he sure did. Risking a finger pluck from one aunt and the death stare from another. Fathers who adored us but drank too much, crushed beneath the world's weight. Brothers who loved too many, others molesting those they could not love. Women standing against the evil tide. From people who learned beating as remedy and correction, pushing their children's hearts away, hoping to save them from corruption, from death, rising, continuing to imagine worlds better than we received. This is a song woven through many generations, holding one long breath, sharing the story so that others can see that hope thrives inside our pain and that home lives on inside our hearts. Not lost. We stand watch over lives not lost, needing the language to make it easy on the ear, easy on the tongue, easier to swallow whole. Invisible chains binding us together, greed and vanity no longer concealed beneath the flawed cloak of justice. Is it chance or destiny that some lives are important while others merely fodder for bullets, pointless wars, victimization? Lives not lost, not carelessly misplaced, not dropped like a half-forgotten note from the back pocket of your favorite jeans on wash day. Lives stolen from other human beings. Original sin never far from our hearts, conjuring up fratricide and genocide. Sequestered by careful consideration, early sell-by dates stamped in utero, abominated, abridged lives condemned, especially for those who do not look like, or talk like, or act like, or think like we do, or for no other reason than those lives simply do not matter to us. And I will finish up with the anchor poem, A Sweeter Song. A Sweeter Song after Etheridge Night. You ask for sweeter songs, better rhymes and lighter melodies, but my poor heart cannot comply, for the truth is all we have on offer. Promises of light-filled days remain empty, lasting happiness in short supply, islands of joy, contentment, sinking in seas of setbacks. I too dream of fresh breezes caressing my face, walking white sands, chasing waves, wallowing in wildflower fields, toes dipping carelessly into cool creeks, basking in moonlight beneath a blanket of stars. Awaiting the opening of asylum doors, co-signing my sluggish freedom, anxious to release the sorrow, the heartache, and watch them float away. Some other day, I shall sing to you of peace and love and hope. Some other day I shall write of beauty and nature, but not this day. Today I am but a canary, caught in life's coal mine, inhaling double doses of air so that you may breathe. Thank you.
Martina, it's simply beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
and
you.
I apologize for having not having unmuted myself when you started, but your words are just gorgeous. Before I introduce our next speaker, I just returned from a holiday in Portugal, and a little bit of backstory to this poem, which is very, very new still. I don't speak Portuguese, so my mother tongue is Sicilian, which is the island of Sicily, but there's lots of different linguistic contributions to Sicilian. I speak Italian, English, I speak French, I've learned Spanish, and I was trying to master Portuguese. So this poem is about that, that trip and what I, just one experience. Sorry, my phone just clicked off. So there we go. Sintra, a short ride from Cascais. At the sidewalk patio of Casa Piriquita with pastéis de bacalhau and a superbock beer after visiting the palaces and castles, o Castelo dos Moros, the pointed arch windows and doorways of O Palacio de Peña, centuries of Arab life here in Sintra, named by the ancients for their goddess of the sun on the hill. There was no forest on these slopes back then, no trees, so the moon shone on the lakes, making night bright as day. So many languages lick at my ears among these blue and white porcelain azulejos. British, French, Spanish, Italian, German, I can only guess at the rest. How I strain to hear the ishes and the iñas, to hear the song in minor scale, the shortening and thickening of Portuguese words, desculpa reduced to one string so that it sounds like desculpa, and you're welcome, brigats. I try to work my clumsy mouth around the Portuguese syllables and get answered with a smile in Spanish. How many more superbox sabor auténtico, I wonder, will it take until my tongue stumbles and trips in authentic Portuguese? So I would like to thank you. I'd like to introduce Marissa now, and also thank Marissa for her invitation to participate in the upcoming New Mexico Poetry Summit. It's the first time I've been invited to share my poetry outside of Canada, except for online opportunities, and I'm thrilled. I'm on my way starting tomorrow. I'm going to be driving south through Montana, then Wyoming, and then Colorado into New Mexico. So this is Marissa's bio. Marissa Prada is a poet, author, and spoken word artist and publisher from Albuquerque, New Mexico. She's polyamorous and mother of 2 daughters. She loves books, authors, and advocates for poetry and the literary arts. She began journaling in high school to cope with teenage stress and trauma. Poetry is the heart of her passion for the past 20 plus years and has seen her through surviving death twice in her life. Marissa is the founder of Red or Green Books, a female-forward press that publishes many debut poetry collections. And I actually am looking forward to getting published by Red or Green. She authors Poetography 505 on Facebook and is the creative director for The Word is Right, and Right is written with a W, on Facebook and Instagram. Oh, also I should say that Red or Green Books, Red is spelled R-E-A-D instead of just R-E-D. Marissa currently sits on the board of directors for the New Mexico State Poetry Society. She's been included in We Don't Break, We Burn, Poems of Resilience by Mindwell Poetry Press, Milk and Honey, assembled by Samantha Swain, Touching Tongues, a woman's erotic anthology, as well as multiple international poetry anthologies, magazines, and journals. Her current collection of poetry, Conversations with Grief, is available for purchase through Red or Green Books. Her next collection, Barfing Up the Butterflies, will debut in 2022. And also, Marissa was considered for the Poet Laureate position. So even being nominated, I think, is a huge honor. So welcome, and thank you for offering to share your words with us.
Thank you so much, Josephine, and thank you, Stacy, for having this incredible room. I see so many New Mexico poets here. Also, Ms. Zaney is in Albuquerque right now. It's so exciting. So thank you all so much, and I cannot wait, Josephine, to see you and all of the Tesoro sisters when you come for the summit in September. But yes, go to the website if you'd like to get tickets or learn more. Please come support the projects of what we're doing. It's going to be incredible. Today, I have 2 poems for you. They're both fairly new, and being that I am among some of the bravest women I know, I am doing 2 brave pieces. The first piece is titled "Who Pulled the Trigger." It was written in a local poetry workshop here with Don McIver this summer. Who pulled the trigger? Always so many questions about accountability and blame. Game of needing 60 seconds of fame, framing fault to be actually not so bad. Because who pulled the trigger? Was a walking infant premeditated NRA warning sign advising an update to the old school supply list with an extra box of tissue required for when your child doesn't make it home? Because someone didn't pull the right trigger on gun reform, on legislation that would prevent an 18-year-old kid from buying a gun, not a beer. Because someone didn't pull the right trigger on legislation that would prevent a walking infant premeditated NRA warning sign from purchasing an AR-15, firing 45 rounds per minute, or 600 rounds per minute with bump stocks where it takes 1/600th of a second to fire a single bullet from a gun. Because someone didn't pull the right trigger on buying ghost guns on a website, or regulate the sale of guns at gun shows, because the illusion of muscle must mean strength. And mourning mothers love strength, right? Healthy, strong. Who done it flexing in the lobby of an entire generation of lost children who felt the full metal jacket shred through their body, while blood exploded from their skin in Uvalde until their heart beat itself furiously into failure. Because someone didn't pull the right trigger behind another kindergarten classroom going away party. All the guns and trained bodies of Kevlar in the world, and not one broke down that door to use what should always be the last best bullet, at least to render aid. I wonder how long it took to mop up the blood. I wonder if the linoleum tiles still carry the stain of the innocent slain. I wonder if the cops who flew the cuckoo's nest still feel that stinging hand sanitizer as children died on the floor beside each other. I think about the audacity of the city council, of the chief of police in Uvalde, the wonderment of where his sanity went. Because only a crazy, sick, stupid, psycho, inept, delusional egomaniac would believe he still deserved to wear a badge. Any badge. Fuck, not even a janitor's badge. But I think about him. The epic, shitty excuse of a human being mopping floors in navy blue overalls that should be jail stripes in an elementary school one day after another shooting, swirling children's blood in rosy, sudsy water, wondering where his life went. Because he must have only been thinking about himself, while the children were probably thinking of their mothers, their fathers, their sisters and brothers, their pets, their friends. They must have begged to go home. They must have been so confused as to why no one was coming to help them. Because no one pulled the trigger. No one stopped the shooter's hands from handling that gun. No one stopped his entrance to the school. No one rushed in to stop him. All the vows in the world are all bullshit. To serve and protect. The wool pulled over the eyes of the flock. And we still stay complacent, as this is our everyday life in America now. Still, we will never see mop companies meeting to lobby about triggers or guns or bullets. But maybe that's where we should start. Poem. Thank you. And this next one is fairly new. I just wrote it a few weeks ago. It is titled Birthright. We immediately put our lives at risk the moment we become mothers. We will give up everything, every breath, every heartbeat, every tomorrow, to bring the life growing inside of us into the light. They say at 31 weeks in the womb, a baby recognizes its mother's voice. My first daughter was a trauma delivery that caused her to be cut from my body. Maybe my body was afraid to open up and bring her into this world, afraid of the violence that had awaited us at home. My second daughter was a planned C-section because doctors don't like to take risks with pregnant women. They will always choose to save the mother. They say the mother can live without the child, but the child cannot live without the mother. I was terrified. Paralyzed spinal block, belly scrubbed, shaved, given medication that made me throw up, strapped to a steel operating room table, surrounded by strangers and scalpels, about to be sliced open, praying to get to meet my baby and not bleed out all over the OR floor. Save my baby, I told the surgeon. They cut into me, my stomach side to side, removed my daughter from my womb, and I held my breath until she declared today was her born day. They showed her to me over the tightrope blue sheet, and she was perfect. They set her on my naked chest, skin to skin, still sticky and clumpy and squirmy. She immediately found my nipple and began to suckle, driven to survive. They say a baby never forgets the smell of its mother. So when a rogue missile dropped on a house half a world away, wiped out an entire family, a woman was pulled from the rubble, rumbling belly full of baby. I instantly knew she would have wanted her baby to live. In the dust and dirt, explosive residue and tears, someone took a knife and cut that baby from her body. She was dead already. The baby girl was the sole survivor of a war fought by cowards, driven by power, fueled by greed, and funded but by what must now be a shared history. Her story will write itself one day. I wonder what happens to a baby's dreams when their first smells are of dust from bombs. I wonder what happens to a toddler's words when their first tastes are from the blood of their dead mother. I wonder what happens to our future when children wake into this world in immediate grief. and their future is so unproven. Will she seek retribution? Will the stain of war flow blood from her pen? Or write us a future of peace, where children do not die and women live to nurse their babies? Thank you all so very much for having me tonight.
Marissa, your words are very moving, very powerful, and thank you for sharing your vulnerability and your sensitivity with us. Oh, okay. So I'm wondering if anybody would like to give some feedback to our readers, either what they read or how they were moved by it. I see there are some comments in the chat. No? Okay, we'll continue then. So I'm going to be reading from my collection called In My Father's House. And some of the poems were written a number of years ago. And in them, I explore who I am through the lens of where I come from. Even though I was born in Canada, I was raised in a very Sicilian household. And I was very strongly influenced by my family. I'm just going to share with you, at one point I'll share with you a photograph of my father. So this collection came together after my father passed away in August of 2022. And I'm going to read them chronologically, but there's some that I will skip over. And there's quite a few Sicilian words in sprinkled in with the English, and I'll explain them as I go. First poem is called No One in My Family Has Died a Simple Death. My father's grandfather was a wick, the oil in his headlamp igniting when a vein opened in the sulfur mine. 4 men carried his char home to die. My mother's mother was the breath after blowing out a candle. Thick black hair in a high bun, but weak of lungs, no medicine to cure her. My mother's father was a mystery. Is there a gravesite, a church record, his name on a ship manifest? Freckles, eyes of blue or green like the sea. Those are the greats and the grands I never knew. My father's father was a glass of water crashing to the floor. He died once but was buried twice, once in the ground at Mount Pleasant and later in a drawer in a concrete wall in the old Sicilian style. My father's mother was a plume of smoke. She faded in stages, stroke taking away her ability to walk, to eat, to recognize. By the time her heart stopped, I had grieved her in 100 ways. My father is a cat on life 6 or 7. Heart attack, prostate cancer, testicular cancer, coal mine lungs, airport collapse. They science fictioned him, cauterizing tissue round his heart. Scar not conveying the impulse to live. Now ischemia constricts vessels in his brain. How are you, he asks on the phone. And the kids? And the weather? And the kids? My mother is a wristwatch with broken hands. She tricks death by believing herself invincible. Tosses an enchantment of salt onto black ice. We watch her decline, gears and springs seized and shut, losing her piece by piece. They say you die twice. According to Bansky, once when you stop breathing. The second, the last time someone says your name. Myself, Josephine Leah Lorre, how will I go? Will I fight death or will I walk headlong into that slow-moving river, willow branch above me swaying in the wind? Thank you. My next piece is Trinacria, and Trinacria is a symbol for Sicily. Sicily is a triangle-shaped island, and I found it, when I was doing some historical research on Sicily, I found it interesting that not only does Sicily have a patron saint, Santa Rosalia, they also have a patron goddess, and that is Medusa, because Sicily at one point belonged to Magna Graecia, to Greater Greece. Trinacria, the ancient Greek name for the island of Sicily. This island runs like magma through my veins. Waters blue transluce, lap 3 separate shores. Mar Terraneo, Mar Ionio, Mediterraneo, the sea in the middle of the land. Sicily is Medusa's head. 3 legs bent at the knee, sheaths of golden wheat. Scirocco blows red Saharan sand across hilly scapes. Dancing la manzurka, la tarantella, under la luna, the moon, la ninna nanna, a lullaby, lo sole, the sun rising onto blood-red Sicilian skies. The third poem is called A Gentle Pull. Sicilia smiles back at me in black and white, my mother freshly engaged, flanked by my father's sisters, their skirts flounced high. The smell of earth baking at 43 degrees, colossal shadows cast at the temple of Concordia. Agrigento, which is the capital city of the province that my parents live in. Agrigento, founded 600 years before Christ by sailors from Rhodes and Crete, Daedalus and his son, Icarus, the timeless intertwine history and myth, mystery. Echoes, old names, Girgenti, Agrigentum, Acracas. We sat in gray-green shade, my sisters and me, flanked by our children under l'oliva, the olive tree gnarled by the slow blink of 2,000 years. Mediterraneo, sea in the middle of the land. When you walk out of Lomare, the sea, the sun dries sea onto skin so that in each kiss you can taste our salt-sweet origin. That evening in Campania, 10 minutes from town, my cucina asked if I would go with her to get a limone. I said si, expecting a car ride. Instead, she led me into the darkening grove. Hanging over us like lanterns, firm ripeness of fruits. La Sicilia, a twist and a gentle pull. In this poem, I talk about the wind. So the wind in Sicily blows up from the Sahara. It's called Scirocco. And we have a wind in this part of Canada called Chinook. And what'll happen with Chinook is it'll be like, I don't know, 13 below or 20 below zero in the Celsius scale. And when the Chinook comes in, the snows all melt and it goes up to fairly moderate temperatures. And so this one is called Lovendo, or the wind. At the edge of this prairie, hills snuggle rocky peaks. Chinook, snow eater, say the Salish, winter's reprieve. Winds blow east, driving mercury from 20 below to 13 above in a single day. Our city duveyed, bright sky blue under silver arc cloud. Whereas there, Scirocco magnifies summer heat. Winds blow north across Saharan immensity. A sheet of red sand gathers over the Mediterranean, falling like blood on this timeless land. The next poem is one of my favorite poems about my parents. It's called The Smell of Sawdust. The smell of sawdust on his clothes and in his hair and in his pores, the roughness of his hands and the breadth of his suntanned back. The darkness of his eyes under thick lashes, dark, she pale and fair, hazel eyes, auburn hair, he profound, his proclamations meant to be absolute, she shrill and reigning over us all nonetheless. The bathroom he built in the basement of their 3-story house where so many rooms were just for company, just for show. He, my father, a deep pool, she, a rushing torrent, a thunderstorm, and she would hurl words that hurt the air around our ears. So many things unsaid, stories we never learned until we were grown. Her mother dying young, leaving 5 children behind. Her father dead or gone away, rumors hushed. Her brother taking her in to work in his house, boiling water carried in from village fountain to wash the diapers of his infant child. The letters that my father sent taken away, hidden by her brother's wife behind the mirror of the dresser. How she became betrothed to another, believing my father had forsaken her, how my father's father and my father's brother went to the house to ask why she wasn't writing back. Those were different times. When I asked why their love was not officially declared before my father left to mine the coal heart of Belgium, I was told they were too young. He had no diamond for her finger, no gold, and their promise was to keep them until he could claim her as his bride. All of this I never knew, for I was but a child, but some evenings he would sit upon a backless stool in the basement of our house, smelling of planed pine, hands rough with work, fatigue heavy on his shoulders, and she would kneel before him, lift his feet one by one from the basin in which they soaked, wash them and towel them dry, and he would look upon her softly, and I could feel, but still not comprehend, the ties that went beyond their words. The next piece, thank you. The next piece is based on the photograph that I have of my parents when they were first married. My mom moved up to Belgium to be with my father, and so they're walking arm in arm, and it's a black and white photograph. A braccetto means arm in arm. The roughness of gabardine and houndstooth, the smooth of stocking silk. After the war, you stride arm in arm down an unnamed street in Mons, or is it Charleroi? None of the coal shows in the seams of my father's skin or in the bubbles of his lungs, and although the photograph is black and white, I can see glints of sun in my mother's auburn hair. How the wind lifts heavy curl, drifting scent towards my father. That confidence of newlywed on cosmopolitan cobblestone, her two-piece suit, jacket and skirt, a smart black handbag, peekaboo toes, and my father, hand in pant pocket, thin striped tie, the jaunt, both with one foot in the air. This is a poem, so there are names of churches in it: San Giuseppe, St. Joseph, Lo Carmine, the Carmen, and Gesù Maria, Jesus and Mary. And there are names of temples as well. As I said, the Greek colonized Sicily. So my parents' hometown is Casteltermini. The capital city is Agrigento or Akrakas. And the Greek gods are Hephaestus, Heracles, and Zeus. This one's called Stories in Stone. San Giuseppe, Lo Carmine, Gesù Maria. Churches built for Catholic saints in limestone, carbonate sedimentary rock in a town founded by Spanish nobles in the 1600s, Casteltermini. Hephaestus, Heracles, Zeus, temples hewn for Hellenic gods from Tufo, spewed volcanic ash and dust in a port city founded by Daedalus 600 years before Christ, Akrakas. But beyond that, before the count of days, when Mesolithic man sought shelter in caves, danced beneath the howl of stars, the land forest thick, island in the sea, in the middle of the earth, what monuments did you carve for the nameless gods of your creation? And I don't know if there's an answer for that. I think the pre-Hellenic and the pre-Christian deities, I think they were abolished and eradicated, but I'm sure in the archaeological digs they do find remains. Okay, I'm going to skip a little bit to tools. My father too used tools. Young, he apprenticed to a shoemaker because only the father and the eldest could work the sulfur mine, and he was the second, the third really, the second having died before my father was born. My father was given his dead brother's name. I have the wooden forms in my closet, black expandable geppetto feet on which to fit the leather to cobble shoes. But shoemaking was not in my father's destiny. He traveled to England, learned how to say aluminium so you could hear the final I. When I was a child, people wondered why I spoke with a British accent. And then to Belgium to work the coal mines, but there was a collapse, a fire, a tragedy at Charleroi, 262 migrants trapped, killed, many of them Italian, and my mother, seed of their first child in her belly, pleaded with my father to leave. From Le Havre, they crossed the Atlantic on La Flandre, like those who had fled the potato famine and that time the British took land from the Scots for sheep pasture, the dispossessed, the displaced. In Canada, my father worked many jobs, an unskilled man with little knowledge of the language and even less of the laws. He ended up a carpenter, like the father of Christ. He smelled of sawdust, his hands rough but never raised. Behind his ear, a pencil, not round, but flattened. It did not fit in the sharpener, so he used a knife to create a chiseled edge while I watched. Always nails and loose change in his pockets, his shoulders as broad as his smile. He built things, fixed things, measured things, and having no sons, he worked alone, while we girls learned to cook, to clean, to pray the rosary, to darn, to embroider flowers and birds and silken thread, to be obedient, well-mannered above all. I would slink off to the garage to help my father by passing him the tools. I learned all their names: lo marteggio, the hammer; la raspa, the file; lo giravete, the screwdriver; la sega, la pinza, la chiave inglese, the wrench. The words literally mean the English key. And that one whose syllables elude me, the planer that smooth wood, creating curlicues out of tree. Lo chianuzzo, I learned when I asked my father. And that silver heart-shaped box that fit in the palm, powder blue magic to mark a plumb line. I would slink to the garage, avoid the cloister of the house as willingly as I would slink into a book. What are my tools now? Computer, like the coiled cord of a telephone that stretches across this continent and beyond to connect family. We all under house arrest. The charge? To remain healthy, to avoid the symptomatic, the asymptomatic. My tools? Memory and language. My tools. The next one is dedicated to my grandmother, called Puma d'amore. Puma, pomodori in Italian, which is tomatoes, but literally means apples of love. Standing in that farmer's field north of Toronto in what would now be a street corner in Maple or Woodbridge, in her black dress de lotto since her husband, my nonno, died. Fazzoletto, kerchief tied round her head. Fallaro, apron girding her equator. I knew her only as an old woman, and now I watch as my own geography morphs towards that same rotundity. My fingers furrow those same curves. Her feet planted in that field while we children stooped and plucked pomodori, filled wooden bushels, the color red but the scent green, that burst of late summer twist off the vine. Bushels driven home in the trunk of the Pontiac, tomatoes laid flat on blanketed garage floor, ripened, then peeled, crushed, strained, rendered into sugo, a sprig of garden basil for each jar. Only a few tomatoes ripen on my vine this year. My garden too little, my latitude too northern, attention sometimes waning, but I twist one this morning off the vine and bite into red memory. My nonna, standing in that field, black dress, fazzoletto, fallaro, seeds, and the warm juices of her childhood Sicilian summers running down her chin. The next poem is A Flick of Blue, and I learned that scientists had captured that there is a flash of light that occurs when a sperm meets an egg, so this one's called A Flick of Blue. I knew. I walked from the bed to the bathroom and knew. A life inside my life, a spark within my spark, a flick. Pictured you infinitesimal, then the size of a grain of flaxseed waving blue in summer breeze, hazelnut in shatterproof shell, apricots, fuzz-covered flesh yielding to slightest touch. Grapefruit, sunshine bursting into scent, bursting bubbles inside me, weeks before movement, weeks before the first real kick, as unforgettable as the first real kiss. All this before anyone else knew you existed. I'm going to skip the next few lines. Dreams of the Dead. My grandmother is a hydrangea, petals pressed close, she opens in blue splendor. My grandfather, a bull trout, slow moving, waters murky. And what of Alex? In one dream, the Ficus benjaminus turns to butterflies, his lopsided smile, his bangs flip to one side, thoughts deep, wings open into poetry. In another dream, beetles and roaches cover the floor, and this morning, lashes fall as I rub sleep from my eyes. I can no longer see myself in the glass. Scirocco, my sleep disturbed by Scirocco last night, red sand blowing across the face of my dreams. These next few poems are triggering because they were written on the occasion leading up to and shortly following the passing of my father. So I'm in several writing circles, and the prompt was to write something like something similar to Robert Frost, and his poem Reluctance was the prompt. So I'm going to read the stanza from Reluctance before reading my poem. And thank you for the 5-minute mark. So Robert Frost wrote in Reluctance, "Ah, when to the heart of man was it ever less than a treason to go with the drift of things, to yield with grace to reason and bow and accept the end of love or a season." My poem is called To Sit Quietly. Ah, such treason to sit quietly with death and not shake his cold grip from my arm. To know he waits expectant in the hall, my father's ragged exhalation tainted by his breath. My father's face grown gaunt, teeth missing from his skull, fingers spectral, and sometimes his gaze dimmed, as if he sees us only from afar, a figment of himself, wavering between this realm and next, like summer bed sheets in the breeze. Photographs bring heaves and tears as he recalls the young man he once was. He moans in his sleep and he talks in his dreams. Emaciated legs no longer hold his withered frame. He winces when I tend his wounds, but brightens when he says my name. And I think death must mean no great harm, for 90 is a long time on this earth. And I no longer resent the tender touch of that which I no longer dread. But oh, what anguish to sit quietly with death and not shake his cold grip from my arm. This one is 9:30, and I'd like to not end with this one because I don't want to leave everybody in a dark place. But 9:30. It is 9:30. My body says sleep. My mind says rest. My heart steps out into the night, leaving the door wide open in search of the call of coyotes. If I had a slingshot and 7 smooth stones, 5 smooth stones, even 3, I would pluck the streetlights from the sky one by one, so that all that would be left would be the cold moon and me. I no longer care about the stars. Their stories no longer matter. The chatter of man, the warmth of fire in fields, none of it. There was a place in my father's garden, a bower of fig, and when I stood in it, sunlight filtered through various spots so that it looked as if our sky held multiple suns. That was the day after my father died. It is 9:34. I looked at the clock and noticed when 24 hours had slipped by after his death. He passed at 00:18. Time has become an accordion with only sad strains stretching out and tumbling past. It has been 6 days now since he passed, 30 hours since his cold body was jacklifted into a maw, sealed with putty and trowel and drill. My father had a trowel just like that. He too used tools. I had gone down to the garage into one of those balsa wood baskets that once held summer tomatoes, tucked one of my father's tools into my tote for the funeral home, in case I needed to feel him. A wrench, and I tucked a few nails into the pockets of his best suit, some loose change, for he always had nails in his pocket when he worked. A carpenter, like the Father of Christ, nails and coins sometimes fell out of his pockets when he lay down to nap, and when I was tasked with vacuuming the couch cushions on Saturday mornings, I would find them. Quarters and pennies and nickels and dimes, and always a pencil behind his ear and a smile on his face as broad and as brilliant as the Sicilian sky. It is now 9:38. I felt his spirit surround me while his lungs still expanded and emptied, and his pacemakered heart still beat, his hand still warm. That was before his forehead felt like he had just been taken from deep freeze. When I brought my lips to his brow, in the casket, I cupped his head with both hands. He didn't like to be cold. Commóllame, he would implore. Cover me, please. He asked so little of me at the end. His spirit around me just past 4 that afternoon, my kids coming in from day-long travel, me at the entrance of the hospital breathing real air for the first time in days. I felt him, and I felt his peace. And if I sit quiet for a moment, I can still feel it. But will it fade? Like the taste of salt in the sea, the aroma of coffee, a hug that feels like it could go on forever. If only we could stand still enough. I do not know. It is 9:42. And this next poem I wrote is Liminalities, and here's the shape of it on the page. There it goes. And I wanted to show you that bower in my dad's backyard. That's the photograph that I took and chose for the cover of the collection. Liminalities. My sister held your hand as you drew your last and told me your touch faded finger by finger until only in her pinky and then gone. But Papa, I feel you differently. In dawn air drawn into lungs, newborn sky, strisce di bianco in un cielo azzurro, strisces of white light in an azure sky. A flurry of sparrows rising into beech tree and echoing your whistle, il fischietto del cardinale, the whistle of the cardinal. So there's a few on my phone that I'd like to share that were written after the collection and after the anniversary of my father's passing. The burning of the dead. I never made a fire for you. I lit a candle, yes, but never a torch, a conflagration, a soundless howl against infinite of night. I could not burn your things, the lists you wrote, the clothes you wore that hold the secret of your scent. Instead, I tie all these, made a raft, and some nights I float onto the sea of endless stars, listen for the way you played guitar, strains soft and sad, your voice pure and light, an offering to gods. Why then do I wake to ash at hearing the lashes of my eye? Ashes in the side part of my hair, the grit of ash at back of tangled throats. And my very last one, after my father passed, I brought my mom out to live with me. She had dementia, which was worsening. And this, like many of my poems, this is a true story. It's called My Mother Speaking to My Father. She speaks to him in her sleep, a love-drugged little voice that has retracted its barbs, its stabs, no longer demanding queen of her destiny. Time has eroded all their petty arguments, the clawed words that hurt me maybe more than they hurt him, for he loved her despite. His words ringing in my head, where's your mother? Take good care of your mother. Just last week when I called was the first time that she forgot that he is dead. She told me she's preparing to go home, that she is waiting for him, that he promised it wouldn't be long, that he would help her. I know it is true. Thank you so much. Would you like to unmute and we can wrap up? Okay, well, I would like to thank you all for coming. It's been a great honor and pleasure to be able to share my words with you, and I look forward to meeting you as soon as I can.
Thank you so much, Josephine, and thank you to my fellow Tesoro ladies. You are all amazing and inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you.
You all.
Thank you, everyone.
Beautiful job, as always, you all. And I will see quite a few of you in September.
Yes.
Thanks for a good reading, everybody.
Thank you to Rich and Miss Saini. Thank you so much. Okay, take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.